Welcome on the stage of the World of Hans Zimmer, a symphonic celebration here in Berlin. My name is Carsten Kümmel. I'm the Tonmeister for that huge show with about 190 inputs and 90 people on stage. And I want to say some words about my microphone setup, what I'm using. So there are some new microphones I found out for personally myself, which I really like. And for example, it's here the RN17 from the company SE Electronics. What do I like about the microphones? First of all, I have to say that's the cello position. And as you see, the microphone points between 4 cello players. What is important for me? For me, it's very important that the quality of a microphone, when the sound comes from the side, is as good when it comes from the 0-degree direction. That's very typical for me that in an orchestra environment, hardly any microphone is pointing with a 0-degree towards the instrument. Why do I do that like that? With that, I have 4 instruments in the same level of one microphone, and I come out with a much better blending of the instruments together, as if I make single microphones per each. And of course, the channel count gets lower. And that's what I'm doing here on all the strings. We have 2 overheads in the first, 2 overheads in the second violins, in the cello, and so on and so on. And of course, there's as well some clip microphones in business, but these microphones, the overheads, they give me the natural sound of the whole string section. They let the string section sound not like 37 single players. It sounds like a string section. Here we are on the podiatry of the French horns. For the French horns, I use more or less 2 systems in the same time. Due to that, the sound of the French horns in Hans's music has to be a little bit more bright. So I have the 2 ribbon microphones, which are the RNR1 from SE Electronics, of course a figure of 8, and they have a little less high frequencies, which is good for the normal sound of the French horn as you expect it in a concert hall. And there's as well a small trick, because it's a figure of 8, the PA, which is 6 meters upstage, is directly in the dead point of that microphone. So I can push it really hard and I hardly have any feedback problems. The second system I'm using on the French horns is the T2 from SE Electronics. It's a switchable microphone with a titan membrane, which makes it very good for impulse responses. And the trick I'm using here, it's between the 2 rows of the French horn players, and the first row, the back side of the instrument, which is much more bright, much more bright, is pointing towards the microphones, and the second row I get the warm sound from the front. And this is exactly the mixture of sound I need to get this typical Hans Zimmer sound. The brass section. So we have here 2 trumpet players, 1 tuba player and 4 trombone players. With the trumpet players, I have one exception from my rule that I use most of the time 1 microphone for 2 players. That was just in the rehearsals we saw that we have to use 2 microphones, so 1 microphone for each player. What I have here, again the T2, I really love them. And they are on hypercardioid, and they have the 110 degrees dead point towards the drum set played by Lucy Landymore. And because we saw that in the rehearsals the drum set is far too loud, the cymbals are far too loud. But just by pointing the dead point of the hypercardioid towards the drum set, so everything is working fine. On the trombones, here I'm again in the rule, 2 players, 1 ribbon microphone, this time it's the VR2. The VR2 compared to the RNR1 has a little bit more high frequencies, and for the trombones player I need a little bit that bright sound, and yeah, they give me exactly the right amount therefore to it. And here on that place, the tuba, I have an SE8 cardioid microphone. Not as expected from the top of the instrument, I place it in front of the microphones. I place it in front of the instrument because I want the very warm sound a tuba normally has. I don't want this harsh, bright sound. And that's why it's placed just in front of the instrument. Percussion. So on that production we have a huge amount of percussion. We have 6 players. The whole width of the stage is full from timpanis on the stage left side far to orchestral percussion on the stage right side. We have world percussion, classical percussion, drum set, so tons of percussion. So here, that's the place of Lucy Landymore, regular drum set, plus taiko, plus surdo, plus piatti, hand percussion. And here everything is done with SE electronic. I use for the snares, for example, I use again the T2 microphones, which have a very fast response because of the titan membrane. On cymbals, again, the RN17, because of their ability, of the quality of the sound which is coming from the side. And you see there are quite a few cymbals, and I all want to have them in the same quality. And what I really felt in love to is this tom microphones, the We Beat it's called. It's much faster than normal dynamic microphone. It's a dynamic one, but the weight of the membrane is much smaller, and that's why it's much faster. And Bertram, my monitor colleague, he for the first time in the rehearsal he heard the microphone and he immediately fell in love with that. Let's go to the other percussion stations. This is the station of Luis Riviera, our world percussionist. Most of his instrument I get by glued microphones on the back sides of his hands. And so like Dabuka, Djembe, Conga, Guerrero, I get all this information by these two microphones. But that does not work on the very low, on the big instruments like the surdo, tom, taiko, and as well it does not work on the cymbals. And that's why I have here on the surdo the We Kick, which is the bass drum version of the We Beat. And the surdo, besides that, it's about 1.5 octaves lower in the frequency than a regular bass drum. And tom, so there the We Beat, I get fast transients, and as well with these 40 hertz, 30 hertz, which is coming from that instrument. It's good to have a very fast reacting microphone, because in the venue where you have the standing waves in the low frequencies, that helps a lot. Besides that, RN17 on the cymbals. Again, why RN17? Because again, the quality of the sound. You see, it's not pointing directly towards towards one single instrument. It's always pointing to several instruments. That's it. Here we are on the position of the orchestral percussion. The orchestra is not here yet, so that's why there are no instruments. But let me tell you that normally here I have the crankassa, which is the big drum, and the gong. And here's something very special I have. It's the very brand new omnidirectional microphone of SE Electronics. Omnidirectional microphones and live sound, especially in loud environments, normally you think, or people think, that's not gonna work. But it works. The crankassa is one of the few instruments where I go very close to it, maybe in a distance of 3-4 centimeters. As soon as I use the cardioid microphone, I get a very strong proximity effect. And omnidirectionals, they don't have a proximity effect. That's why I'm using it here. Omnidirectional live sound works. You see, I'm playing around a lot with the figures and the characteristics of microphones. That's the place of Alexandra Shukla, a classical percussion player, but here in that show she's more into the band of her role. And what she's playing besides the mallet cat, what is the mainly thing she's playing as well. She plays a gong drum, an 18-inch tom, and a 16-inch tom. It worked on the other toms, so we use it here as well. It's the V Beat.